The main character, Andy, is a successful banker who finds himself in a prison called Shawshank, convicted for the murder of his wife and her lover. Despite the fact that he insists on his innocence, all the evidence speaks against him, and he is sentenced to life imprisonment. From his first days in Shawshank, it becomes clear that Andy is different from the other prisoners. He is reserved, silent, and does not participate in fights or other displays of cruelty typical of life in prison. One of the main characters is also Red, a prisoner who has served many years and is famous for being able to get anything from the outside world. He immediately pays attention to Andy, and a friendship gradually develops between them. Andy asks Red to get him a small hammer for a sculpture, explaining that his hobby is carving figures out of stone. Red agrees, although he doubts that such a small tool could be used for escape. Andy patiently and persistently adapts to life in prison, but does not lose his faith in justice and hope for freedom. During his first few years in prison, Andy faces various challenges. He is regularly beaten by members of a gang led by an inmate named Bugs. These attacks continue until one of the wardens, Hadley, intervenes and brutally punishes Bugs and his men, effectively ending their dominance over Andy. One day, when the inmates are working on the roof of the prison, Andy overhears the guards talking about taxes. He, being a former banker, offers Hadley a way to legally evade taxes through a gift to his wife. This initiative impresses the guards, and soon Andy becomes useful to the prison administration, helping them with their financial affairs. In exchange for his services, he receives some privileges, such as the opportunity to improve the library and gain access to books and materials. Andy also begins to help the inmates. He organizes free consultations on taxes and financial matters, attracting respect among both inmates and guards. However, his relationship with the warden, Norton, becomes more complicated. Norton sees in Andy not only a useful specialist, but also a tool for money laundering through various fictitious schemes, which Andy is forced to carry out under threat of reprisal. Over time, Andy fully immerses himself in his duties while also working to expand the library and help other inmates get an education. He pursues grants and books by writing weekly letters to various institutions. After years of persistence, he manages to greatly improve conditions in the library, which becomes the center of the prison's intellectual life. Through this, Andy continues to maintain his faith in a better future. An important moment in the plot is the appearance of a young prisoner named Tommy. He befriends Andy and Red and tells them the story of how he met a man in another prison who bragged about killing his wife and her lover and then framed the man who was later convicted of the crime. Andy realizes that this may be the same man who committed the crime for which he was convicted. He tries to bring this information to the warden, but Norton refuses to even consider reviewing the case, as Andy is too important to him as a financial advisor. Moreover, to get rid of Tommy, who can prove Andy's innocence, Norton arranges his death, making it look like an escape attempt. Andy realizes that all his hope for justice has crumbled. He begins to appear broken, and his friends begin to worry about his condition. He speaks cryptic phrases to Red about hope and the future, and asks him to visit a certain place after his release. In this atmosphere of tension, Andy suddenly disappears from his cell. The guards and wardens are shocked as to how a man could disappear from a locked prison. During the investigation, it is discovered that Andy has been digging a tunnel in his cell for years using the same hammer he once asked Red for. He hid the hole behind posters he hung on the wall. After digging the tunnel, he used the sewers to break free. But it wasn't just an escape Andy had prepared in advance. He not only escaped but also collected all the evidence of the warden's corruption and sent it to the authorities, thanks to which Norton was investigated and the rest of the prison administration lost their positions. Andy goes to Mexico, to a small town on the coast that he once told Red about. Red, meanwhile, continues to serve his time. He has applied for parole many times, but has been denied each time. After many years as an old man, he finally gets his freedom. However, life on the outside proves to be hard for him. He cannot adapt to the world outside the prison, feeling like an outsider. He is plagued by loneliness and lack of purpose. Red remembers Andy's request and goes to the very place he described to him, a secluded spot in a field where a box is hidden under a tree. In the box, he finds a letter from Andy inviting him to join him in Mexico. Red decides to follow him despite his doubts and fear of the new world. He buys a ticket and sets off, relying on the chance to find a new life, free from the walls of prison and the past.